Hello there, it's Phumlani M. Majosi. I am back. This is the Phumlani Majosi show, where we give you a black conservative perspective on local and global socio-economic affairs. Okay, we'll need to try that again. Make sure that all is in order, and then we start. Hello there, it's Phumlani M. Majosi. I am back. This is the Phumlani Majosi show, where we give you a black conservative perspective on local and global socio-economic affairs. We are advancing black conservatism here. Um, that is our mission. That's what we're trying to do. That's what we're trying to push for. Because we do believe that there's a huge space for that. There's a need to push for such, ideas. It's good for our democracy in the country. Three stories I want to talk to you about on this beautiful day here in Johannesburg. Again, remember to get my book, Lessons from Past Heroes, at a bookstore near you. Say it's a book written to inspire South Africans to remind them that they are gifted, that they have huge potential, that they can do amazing things. It's a book on the economics, the politics, and the history of South Africa. A beautiful history, by the way. So do get your book just, at a bookstore near you. Let's start with three stories I want to cover this week. The South African Post Office business rescue process. As we all know, the South African Post Office is one of the SOEs that are in serious trouble. And right now they're undergoing a business rescue process. And then we will talk about Zuma, the former president of the country, Jacob Zuma, being disqualified by the IEC, the Independent Electoral Commission. He's being disqualified to be a member of parliament, given them the May 29 elections that he's contesting as leader of the MK party. So he has been disqualified due to the fact that he has been sentenced before or has served as a prisoner. But the MK party is appealing that, so we shall see how it goes. But I want to talk about that story. That will be my second story. My third story, which will be very fascinating, is about the new poll survey or the polls that were released by IOL and Independent Media this week, and they show something very interesting. And I would like to talk to you about that and share my thoughts and the concerns I have about what those polls mean for the country. The South African Post Office, guys, look, so it's a struggling company, a state-owned company. It's in serious trouble, going through the business rescue process. And guess what? So last year they got an amount of 2.4 billion rands from government to try and sort of keep it afloat and to address its challenges it faces. So 2.4 billion rands of taxpayers' money went to the South African post office. So this was last year, and then now they have sent out, because they are going through the whole restructuring process. That's what they are saying. And the government is saying that they want to create something that is smaller, lean, and efficient and cost effective. That's what they want to do with the post office. They want to make it small, lean, and efficient, cost effective. I'm not sure you can believe that when government controls an institution. Don't buy that. Anyway, so they've been consuming a lot of taxpayers' money. So we gave them, you and I, the taxpayers, gave them 2.4 billion rands last year, and then this week they have issued close to 5,000 retrenchment letters to workers because the company is being restructured. So there will be, in fact, 4,700 retrenchment letters were sent to workers. And what we'll hear as well is that there will be 234 post offices to be closed across the country. So there is a huge sort of shift that is taking place within the South African post office. They are calling it, what is it? A strategy, a recovery strategy. So that's what they are doing. But now here's the thing: even to make the payouts or retrenchments payouts, they still need to be bailed out. They still need money from government. They're asking for 3.8 billion rands to help them so that they are able to pay out these retrenchments payments. So we gave them 2.4 billion rands last year, and I'm sure even in previous years, we gave them billions. So 2.4 last year, and then they want 3.8 billion. This year of my tax money and your tax money. After it's been turned into a serious mess, folks. If you don't let the private sector either be involved to an extent, or you don't let the private sector to take over, you are going to have issues in the sense that at some point, the organizations that are led or owned by the government, they will consume taxpayers' money, right? And the government is not going to let them to fail. Now, the theory here, or the belief from those who advocate for state-owned enterprises, is that even if an SOE faces some serious financial headwinds, the taxpayers must bail them out. So that's the belief. So for them, it's accepted. To the advocates of SOEs and government-owning businesses, those guys are saying it's okay, even if it struggles, the government must pay out, must bail it out, because, well, why? Well, it's them for development purposes. It's there to advance a developmental state. Come on, really? I mean, some things you've got to create incentives for people to get it right, because so long as an organization is owned by the government and people are guaranteed that they will get payouts, or government will cover for them if they fail, there's no incentive to get things right, to get the strategy right, to get the process right, to get the profit motives right. There's just none. Productivity as well. There's no incentive for people to be way more productive, because you've just killed competition. They're not competing with anyone. So that's why you always have these inefficiencies, and SOEs become a hotbed of corruption. Now, some people are going to say, well, but Phumlani, well, you do know there are SOEs in China, there are SOEs in Europe, there are SOEs in the US, and so on. And then those SOEs are profitable. Now, listen to me. The point here is that, yes, they may look, as you say, profitable, but at the end of the day, if they lie with the private sector, if the private sector is involved, and the private sector either fully, or the private sector is somehow involved in the whole thing, you are really decreasing the risks. You are minimizing the risks of, the whole thing imploding, right? Or people, behaving in a way that hurts the productivity of the company. You are minimizing the risks, because the risks are higher if the government is fully in control of the company. The risk of corruption, the risk of taxpayers' money being consumed by when the SOE fails. I mean, they are higher if government takes it off. That's going to happen. Whereas, if the whole thing is owned by the private institution, well, then whatever happens with that, especially in a competitive environment, that's why it's important that we create a competitive environment in different sectors of the country, because when something fails, the competitors can take over to provide the service. So I mean, we've got to. That's how we have to think about how we we structure our economy. Now, the fact that it's done in other countries, there are SOEs in other countries, and at least in your eye, for now, they seem to be working. That doesn't mean that they are the best idea or the optimal idea. They are not the optimal idea, right? So regardless whether it's in China or Europe or USA, it's not the ideal idea. You've got to let the private sector be the driver of economies because they are the ones who are productive. The private sector is more productive. It's more competitive, it's more productive, and it's more efficient. Um, in many, many, many ways. So that's how we need to think about. And that's those are the things that we really need to keep in mind when we speak about SOEs. The fact that they work, they still look like they work somewhere is not necessary. Create a thriving, competitive market. In fact, even at a minimum, there must be no market or no goods or service, that is, wholly supplied by the government, entirely supplied by the government. There's no other alternative that people can go to. You don't do that, right? We must kill this thing of having some certain goods and services being only supplied by the government, even though they may be supplied by the government, which, by the way, I've just said I don't like. But if that is the case, then there must be the alternatives in the private sector that are thriving, or trying to compete with that SOE to try and provide the service or a good. Now, government must make it easy for those companies to compete, which for them, because they like monopolies, they like controlling people, they like controlling SOEs. That might not come easy to them, so they would love to take control of SOEs and control the whole market and not allow for stronger competition. So that's how we need to think about. So I mean, the post office thing, it's a mess. It's been a mess for a while, and bringing the private sector either to take it over fully or to bring it somehow as a partner. There's no other way to really handle the whole thing. And the DA is saying that there should be no bailout. I'm not a fan of bailouts. Now, some people say that, well, look, even if companies are owned privately, government is going to come and bail them out in times of financial crises. Look at what happened in the US after the 2008 financial crisis with the whole bailouts of big banks. Listen, my philosophy here is that whether in the US or anywhere, the government must stay out from bailing private companies, right? Taxpayers' money must not be used to bail out private companies at all. So the argument that, well, in the USA, they bailed out the banks, and therefore the private sector can be bailed out as well, to me, that doesn't make any sense. It's not a strong argument. It's a weak argument. Because at the end of the day, the point here is that there must be no use of taxpayers' money to bail out private institutions or private banks. So that's the philosophy we need to embrace as a country if we want to move forward, right? When you look at all the things you see here around me, this mic here, these spectacles I have here, my books behind me, my bookshelf, none of this was supplied by the government. None. My car that's parked down there wasn't supplied by the government. This I'm wearing, it was not supplied by the government. This pen here, this pen that I'm using here, this pen, it was not supplied by the government. Suddenly now, government must supply XYZ. There should be no competitor for water supply. There should be no competitor, competitor to government on electricity supply. There are many things. The train industry and so on. I mean, well, the train industry is in trouble now. But in various things, the post office, the idea, bring more competitors to the whole thing. Let the private sector produce and supply in the market. So the key objective must be how to expand the private sector? How do we grow it to be strong, to be the driver, to be the supplier of goods and services? We have a responsibility to create that environment, both the citizens and the government. Now, that was the first story. Second story, Zuma being disqualified by the IEC. The IEC saying that he cannot contest the elections. He can't be in parliament because of his previous sentence when he was sentenced for his failure to testify at the Zonda Commission. Sentenced for 15, he was sentenced for 15 months. And then, of course, he was pardoned by President Cyril Ramaphosa last year. Now, the IEC says he can't be part of the people who contest to be, members of parliament as we head to the May 29 elections this year. Look, it doesn't change anything. Jacob Zuma being disqualified does not change anything. He has mobilized the people. He has said to people, don't vote for the ANC, vote for the MK party. Now, even if Zuma is not on the ballot or Jacob Zuma is not heading to parliament, he has already mobilized people and created a movement. Zuma is going, will be around, and he has already told people not to vote for the ANC. A big chunk of them in KwaZulu-Natal, as you can see, the ANC is doing, the MK party is doing very well in KwaZulu-Natal when you look at the poll numbers. You can just go online and check the Social Research Foundation poll numbers and see. I think there are others that have been done by Brenthurst Foundation. They've done some polls as well. I won't go through them with you here. You can check online. There is also ENCA has done some polls as well. And there's another one I'm going to talk about, which is the IOL and Independent Media polls that were released, that we learned about this week. So check those as well. So the MK party is doing well in Natal, in KwaZulu-Natal, my home province. So it's not going to change anything. Whether Zuma goes to the parliament or he doesn't, MK party will eat away a lot of votes from the ANC, especially in KwaZulu-Natal. And Zuma will continue to be the force in public, to be the force against the ANC, to be the force calling for for a shift with how the ANC conducts itself going forward. So really, folks, there's no change from Zuma being disqualified. There is no change at all. Now, that story I want to touch on is basically the IOL and the Independent Media poll survey that was released this week. Very fascinating in terms of parties or the party preferences according to the people they surveyed. EFF came at the top. Now, I don't want to dwell into the methodology, whether this IOL poll and Independent Media, it's the methodologies, how they went about. Let's not focus on that. Let's look at the numbers for now. There have been many polls that have been released, and there will be many polls that are coming through. But for now, let's look at what they've told us. EFF at the top with 20.6%, ANC second, 19%. This is party preference. MK party at 16%, and then DA at 10%, right? Now, and then the other question they asked the people that were surveying was, who would best be the next president of South Africa? So who should be the next president of South Africa? Something along those lines. People said 21% said Julius Malema. And then below that is Zuma, Jacob Zuma. The third is Ramaphosa. And then the fourth is Steenhuisen. And then Hlabisa was number 5, Hlabisa of the IFP. Now, Julius Malema and Jacob Zuma at the top. Folks, do you seriously believe that this country would be fixed by the statist, Leninist, Soviet communist way of thinking? Did you seriously believe that to fix our problems of failing SOEs, failing education, the dismal economy that has been growing at less than 1% for years now, an economy that underperforms the sub-Saharan region, an economy that has the highest unemployment rate in the world, an economy where almost half of the workforce is jobless, an economy that lacks competitiveness globally. Do you seriously believe that Julius Malema would be the fixer of the whole thing? Right? We already know what these people, Julius Malema and his people, stand for. Right? It's chaos. It's Marxist. Things like nationalizations, things like more regulations, more BE, more minimum wage laws. It could go on. More statist interventions in the economy. Do you seriously believe that will be the fix? Now I'm asking the people who were surveyed here, and they saw that Julius Malema would best be the next president of South Africa. Do you seriously believe that's what will fix our country? Because it isn't what will fix our country. It's not more government, taking charge of our country. It's more government enabling people to take charge of their lives, to take charge of themselves in the market. That's what the role of government should be, not to take over and be the supplier of goods and services and be the controller and to run around peddling victimhood. That the reason why some people are at the bottom is because some people have stole or some people owe them something. To perpetuate victimhood will not get this country anyway. It's not going to reduce inequality. It's not going to double our GDP or increase our GDP growth. It's not going to do that. To whine and complain, to create a narrative that if you take from the 9% of the population, if you take from the 9% of the population by force and you distribute to what? To the majority of the country, right? To distribute to Black people, you think that will be the solution to our country? I mean, do you think that will address the challenges of the country? It won't, because our challenges have to do with lack of competitive education, underskilled youth. That's a very fundamental problem. It's got to do with the regulatory environment that disincentivizes employment, right? It's got to do with failure to control the borders. It's got to do with crime. The crime we have in the country. It's at a shocking level. So those are the things. It's got to do with the very high tax rates that we are paying, taxes that are suppressing the economy. It's got to do with the issues of energy. You can't. So if you can address those things and you allow Black people to be the driver of their destiny, they are going to achieve things. To say that the government must do more, take control, that is crazy. Jacob Zuma, second after Malema, he would best be the next president. Are these folks, have they drank something? Did they smoke something? What did they smoke? It was like the people who say Jacob Zuma would best be the next president, right? In other words, him being the next president of South Africa would be good. What did those people smoke exactly? What is it that they smoked? Because whatever it is, it's very strong, folks. Whatever those guys smoked is very, very strong. It's very, very strong. Jacob Zuma was in charge of the country for 9 years. The country, it was a free fall. It was in decline. Under him, the whole mess began under him. Under Mandela and Mbeki, things were better. Then under Jacob Zuma, things went downhill. Ramaphosa failed to fix it. Right? He himself, in fact, has been one of the problems. Ramaphosa himself. So you want Jacob Zuma to come back now. Jacob Zuma goes on perpetuating victimhood about land. He's so race obsessed. What's the point of that? I'm not saying that we are racially diverse people. I'm Black. I don't have an issue saying I'm Black. That's why I'm saying that this is Black conservative platform that I've created. Right? We are talking about Black conservatism. Black conservatives. Who are these people? There's nothing wrong about that. You must talk about race from a constructive perspective, not a perspective of victimhood, to say that race is the one that owes you. 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 So you want Jacob Zuma to come back now. He goes on perpetuating victimhood about land. He's so race obsessed. What's the point of that? I'm not saying that we are racially diverse people. You are where you are because that race owes you something. Complete waste of time. Because even if we were to take all the things of that race and give them to the entire population, or the population that you believe, which make up the majority, the population that makes up the majority, if we were to give them the stuff you've taken over by force from the minority, forget that would enrich them. They would be destitute in a year or two still, because you really didn't increase their, you didn't improve their productivity and production skills. You didn't focus on that. You focused on redistributing by force. And that is not what this country needs. So folks, stay away from parties like Julius Malema, Julius Malema's EFF, MK parties. Stay away from these parties. It's not helpful. And others that support this radical economic transformation agenda that will be counterproductive, that will suppress South Africa's economy. Stay away from those people and vote for people who will be pro-market, pro-growth, pro-collaboration, who are proud of themselves. There's nothing wrong about being proudly black, being proudly white, being proudly, Indian, proudly English, proudly Zulu, proudly Afrikaner. Nothing wrong with that. We're diverse people and we should be proud of our identities. Nothing wrong with that. But to use that and perpetuate toxicity is not going to help, folks. That's going to be of no help for our country. So I want to wrap it there, and I hope that you are going to have a fantastic weekend. Remember, I am on phumlanimajosi.com. I'm also on X, and my X handle is @phumlani_m_majosi. Also on Facebook. I have a Facebook page. Please help me get to at least 1,000 followers on Facebook. You will find me with the name Phumlani M. Majosi. You will find my Facebook page. I'm also on LinkedIn, Phumlani M. Majosi. I'm also on Instagram @Phumlani M. Majosi. What else do I want to tell you? Yeah, we'll talk next week.